Hello, Ninjas. Thank you for joining us for our Ninja Sales Meeting. We appreciate you being here. My name is Larry Kendall. I'm the author of Ninja Selling, and I'll be your host for this meeting. And like all good ninjas, what day is today? It's another day in paradise. You got that right. Hey, if you're with somebody, turn to them and say it's another day in paradise. If you're by yourself, just say it out loud. But every day is a gift. And we're so appreciative of the day. And we'll start with our gratitude. Our session today is on pricing and positioning for today's market. And I think it's very relevant. What we're hearing from a lot of the ninjas is that it's a challenge right now with the pricing, getting listings sold, especially in some markets. We'll also talk about positioning, how you position your listing compared to the competition. And, the days have changed from, hey, what do you want for your house? We'll launch the auction. So we're back to more of a normal market now. And one of the things we need to remember is that listings are really the key. And what we're going to share with you over the next 20 minutes or so is right out of a class that we have called a Listing Master Class. And we would encourage you to consider that. We have one that actually launches this week, and it's sold out in a matter of days. We have another one coming up in October. If you're interested, catch that QR code right there and take a look at being a part of that Listing Masterclass next month. What we know is this: all real estate markets are local. Now, some markets are still pretty hot. You can see from this chart, the red areas, the markets are still pretty hot for a seller. They're still getting multiple offers. They're still selling above the listed price. Almost an auction fever in some of those markets. Most of the country is starting to slow down and become more of what we call a normal market. And when we look at the price cuts, what we see is that nationally about 1 out of every 5 homes, there's some sort of price reduction. And you can see there it varies again by state. All markets are local. You can look at your state and kind of see where you are. But the national average is about a little less than 21%. Also, sellers are giving concessions to buyers. 44.4% in July. We're giving concessions to buyers. And so when you're pricing, you need to look not at just what is the price, but what are the concessions that are being offered? And when you're looking at sold prices, try to find out were there concessions involved in that. For example, was there a buy down on the interest rate, or maybe they're including a year's worth of HOA dues? What was the concession that was involved there too? Because that's just as important right now as price. Also, the builders are in the game. Notice that they have the highest at least a year, 66% of them are offering incentives. You can go out to a new home sales center and they're throwing in upgrades, they're throwing in yards, window coverings, they're doing buy downs to an interest rate of 5% or even less. And so that's now a competition to consider for your resale listing. If you're in a market where there's builders that are building in your listing's price range, you need to be familiar with what are the builders doing. What we're going to do is share with you kind of 5 pricing tips in this market. We'll start out with your mindset, bringing the right energy to the seller. What do you do to prepare for that listing? A very important concept called benchmarking. Value positioning. This is where we will position the listing compared to the competition. And then finally, what do you do after you have the property listed? When you're doing your Ninja Habit number 6, your weekly client service calls, when you're calling your sellers, what do you say to them? What kind of information should you have for them? So let's start with mindset. First of all, why do I exist? Well, I exist to sell houses, right? Or I exist to sell real estate. But really, I exist to help my clients go from the life they have to the life they dream about. Anybody who's selling a house that's where they are, and there must be some place that they're going. And so they're trying to get from point A to point B. They're trying to get from the life they have to the life they dream about. And if we think about that and have that right mindset, here's how that shows up. 2 realtors on a listing appointment. The typical realtor, what's their goal? Well, their goal is to what? Get the listing. But the ninja realtor, what is your goal? Well, it's how do I help these people get to the next chapter of their lives on time? Well, if you were the seller, which realtor would you want to work with? The one who's there to get your listing, or the one who's there to help you get to the next chapter of your life on time, to help you go from the life you have to the life you dream about? That is your mindset when you're going in. Let's talk about how do you prepare. Now, we have a saying in Ninja that the market will speak to you. Are you listening? Well, what do we mean by that? Well, let's give you some examples. When you're getting ready to go on a listing interview, you want to do several things. First of all, run an RPR, Realtor Property Resource Value, a Zestimate value. Your seller probably has looked at the Zestimate. They have that in their heads. And also look at county records. If you're in a disclosure state, find out what did they pay for that property when they bought it. That becomes what we call a benchmark. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. Secondly, what are the days to offer? Now, some MLSs provide days to offer, some don't. Some of them just provide days on the market. We find that days to offer is the most accurate. That's what you want. If you look up and you say, wow, in your price range, the average days to offer is 15 days, what that says is if we go past 15 days, we need to be concerned, okay? And we can also look and see that, the average is 15 days to offer. The longest was 35 days to offer. There's properties that have been sitting on the market for, 60 days, 80 days, etc. Knowing the activity in that market, very, very important. Number 3, your sales price to list price ratio. Remember 2021, typically your sales price was over 100% more than the list price. So maybe it's 103% of list, 105% of list, 110% of list. What we're seeing now in the markets that are becoming kind of a return to normal is we're seeing 98% of list, 99%, 96%. Know what that is in your market and what is the trend? Is it rising or is it falling? Number 4, months of inventory and absorption rate. Now, we'll go into more detail on this. We'll give you an example of how this works a little bit later. You want to do months of inventory and absorption rate for the price range that you're in or the neighborhood or the type of property. Maybe it's golf course property or acreage property. Number 5 then is let's look at all the past sales, but not just the price. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Were there incentives? Were there concessions? Yeah, it sold for $500,000, but there were $12,000 worth of concessions, which really means it's a net price of about $488,000. So let's look a little bit deeper, not just at the sales price, but also the incentives and concessions. Number 6, is there any new construction that would compete? Is a buyer going to be looking at that new construction at the same time that they would be looking at your listing, so that new construction is competition? And what incentives are those builders offering? Number 7 then is to review and preview your current competition. And take a look at that competition and have there been any price reductions? How long has that property or those properties been on the market? And then finally, your visual pricing tools. Anything that you can show the seller is better. Showing is better than telling. And we like to use the Focused First tools. If you're not familiar, go to focus1st.com and you can see some examples. I'll show you an example a little bit later on. But this is what you want to do to get prepared for that listing interview. Let's talk about benchmarking for a moment. I'm really intrigued by this study where they took a group of people and they said, okay, group A, you're going to be sellers. Group B, you're going to be sellers. We have you in 2 different groups. You have the same realtor who's going to be communicating with both groups. and you both agree to list your home at $600,000. You also both agree to reduce the price to $575,000 when it doesn't sell. Then you both groups got an offer for $550,000. Now it's interesting, in Group A, 82% accepted the $550,000 offer. In Group B, 67%, 2 out of 3 rejected the $550,000 offer. Now wait a minute, why would there be so much difference? Well, this is what the study was built around. In Group A, the realtor mentioned to Group A what they paid for the home. In this case, it was $400,000. So you bought your home, 5 or 6 years ago. You paid $400,000 for it. Wow, you guys have done well on this home. With Group B, they didn't mention that. And as a result, the two different groups have different benchmarks. Group A has a benchmark of $400,000 and sees the $550,000 offer as we're making $150,000. But with Group B, their benchmark was the original list price. And so in their mind, they're what? They're losing $50,000. So this is very subtle and yet very powerful. And so make sure you do your homework and check county records, find out what they paid for the property, and then in your listing appointment, just casually mention, I see you bought the property in 2016 for this price, and that becomes the benchmark around which they compare. It's always interesting to me when a seller says, well, I don't want to lose money on my house. Well, if they bought their house more than 2 or 3 years ago, I don't know how they could lose money on their house because there's been so much appreciation in the last 2 or 3 years. Okay, what is the definition of a CMA? Well, there's really 2 definitions. One is it's a comparative market analysis where we look at the properties that are similar in size and location to the subject property that have sold. The other definition is a competitive market analysis. That is, we're going to take a look at the competition, what is currently for sale. Well, let me ask you this. Which one is the most relevant one in today's market? For most markets, if your market has started to cool, we'll look at both, but the one we want to pay the most attention to is the competitive market analysis, the competition. And that leads into what we call a value positioning strategy. Excuse me. You're pricing based on the competition, not based on what has sold. I want to share with you a value positioning strategy called absorption rate value. Excuse me. Let me get a drink here. Okay. We have a system that we teach in Ninja called absorption rate value positioning. It's very simple. I'm going to walk you through it. It's very powerful, and what it does is it demonstrates to a seller how you bring value to them. So let me give you an example. And this is an example from a house I listed a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away in a neighborhood called Anderson Farm. So I went into, my search was that neighborhood by location, Anderson Farm. Computer. How many homes have sold in the last 12 months in Anderson Farm? The answer was 25. Step 3. Well, what is that in a sales rate per month? Well, it's 2 per month. Okay. How many homes are currently for sale? Well, there were 17, but then I'm bringing a listing. So now there's going to be 18 properties for sale in Anderson Farm. Well, what is the absorption rate? Well, you take 18 properties that are available. They're selling at the rate of 2 a month. There's a 9-month supply. Wow, this is pretty tough competition for my seller. So what are their odds that their house will be the next one that goes under contract? They really want to be out of this neighborhood. They're building a new house. It's going to be done in the next 90 days. They really want to be under contract in the next month or 2. Well, the odds of being under contract in the next month is 2 out of 18, which is 11%. I can still remember the look on their face like, we don't stand a chance, do we? And I said, well, wait a minute. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's take a look at how buyers buy houses. They look at 5 what we call components of value. Number 1, they look at the condition. Number 2, they look at the location. Number 3, they look at the size, square footage of the house or the size of the lot. They also look for features and amenities. Does it have a view? Does it back to a park? Does it have a man cave? I mean, what are the features and amenities? And then they look at the price. So here's what we're going to do. There's 18 homes that are available in competition with us, counting ours. Can we identify the 6 best homes? Well, I know that buyers can look online and identify the 6 best. I know we can as well. So that's what I did. And then I went out and previewed the 5 homes that I felt were in competition with my listing. I actually went through them and figured out, okay, what do we have to do to compete? More importantly, what do we have to do to win? What do we have to do to be in the top 6? And if I can be in the top 6, we've increased our odds from 11% to 33%. If we can be in the top 4, we got a 50-50 shot. If we could be in the top 2, pack your bags, you're moving to your new home. I can remember the look on the seller's face when I walked through this with them, and the first question out of their mouth was, what do we have to do to be in the top 2? Certainly they want to be in the top 4. And I knew exactly what they needed to do. They were willing to do that, and they were the next ones out of that neighborhood. Let me offer you another idea here on pricing. Have you ever heard of the pricing bridge? See, buyers look for houses online, and they'll have these price bands like, well, we want a house between $250,000 and $300,000, or between $300,000 and $350,000. Well, when you price on what we call the pricing bridge, they catch both searches. So we would recommend that you not price a home at $299 because you will miss all the searches at $300 to $350. I was on a Zoom call recently with and we're doing a Q&A, and I had a ninja said, I've got this listing. It's priced at $495,000. It's not selling. I'm looking at the competition. They're selling. We're not selling. I said, what do you notice? He says, well, what I notice is the competition's the ones that have sold have all offered interest rate buydowns. I said, are you offering an interest rate buydown? He says, no. I said, well, try this. Raise the price of your home from $495,000 to $500,000. What that does is it catches the pricing bridge. You'll catch both price searches, and then use that $5,000 for your seller to offer a buy down. He goes, that's a great idea. We're going to do that. And I think that worked out really well for them. See, the pricing bridge, if you price on the bridge, there was a research study done on this, you expand the search area, and you end up with 28% more showings. What if you're pricing a home that's in a neighborhood where the builder is still active? It's what we call an almost new home. It's a couple of years old. The builder is still building that floor plan in that neighborhood, so the builder is your competition. How do you price a home like that? Well, a lot of sellers, the first thing they'll do is they'll run down to the sales center and they'll say, what's the current price of the Aspen plan? And they'll get that base price. Then they'll say, well, we've added the yard and we've added the window coverings and we've added the fence and we've got all these upgrades. They'll add that in. Any other improvements that they've added. They also add the upgrades that they got from when they bought the house, then their improvements, and then they'll come up with a price. Sometimes they'll even go so far as to add the commission on top of it. Well, now wait a minute. What is a buyer willing to pay for this house? The research shows that buyers would rather have a brand new home that nobody's lived in, they're the first, than even a almost new home. And they're willing to pay 10% more. So what you do is take the base price, add your upgrades, add your improvements, but then reduce by 10%. That's the more realistic price for an almost new home. Okay, you have this home listed. Now what? Well, again, the market's going to be speaking to you. Make sure you're listening. Well, what should you be listening for? Well, you're going to be calling your seller every week in Ninja Habit number 6, your client service calls. And you should, before you make those calls, know what the market is saying. So, for example, if you're getting a lot of online views but no showings, the market is speaking. Very attractive online, but nobody wants to set up a showing. That would probably be a pricing problem. Showings and no offers. Well, that could be a problem as well. Do you track this in your office? I looked in our office. We're just looking at showings to pending or showings to offers. And it's an average of 7.5 showings before we get the first offer. That's on average. Some of them it's only one showing. Some of them it's 15, but the average is 7.5. You should know what that number is. And if it's 7.5 and you're up at 10, 12, 15, 20 showings, what does that tell you? The market is speaking to you, and it's speaking to your seller. Who has the buyers? Are you using the showing service, Showing Time? If you are, you can see all the buyers or all the realtors in your market that have buyers in your price range. And you can call them up and say, hey, I noticed that you have a buyer between 600 and 700,000, and I have a listing in that price range. I haven't seen you showing it. You know, what's that going to take? Or why haven't you shown it? Or maybe you have shown it. Why didn't you bring an offer? Tell me, what did your buyer do? Did they buy something else? And if so, why did they buy that? Find out what's selling. And take a look at what is the days to offer? What is the days on the market? What's the sales to list? What were the concessions? Go deeper. Really know your market. Become an expert in your market. Also, what's not selling and why? How many days on the market? Why do you think it's not selling? Well, it's the only one that's not offering concessions. Price reductions of the competition. Okay, we're in a competition, but this one has already reduced the price twice, and so we can't look at the original list price for that as competition. We have to look at the current price. And then always remember new construction. Is there new construction that's competing with you? You should really be up on who is the new construction competition, how are they selling with concessions, etc. One of 4 things will happen once you list that house. One, what if it's dead? There's no online views. Ooh, that's going to be a big problem. That tells us we got a real problem. We need to research and figure that out. Is it price? What is it? Is it location? What if we're getting online views but we're not getting showings? That usually is a pricing problem. What if we're getting showings and no offers? Well, if we're getting 1 or 2 showings and no offers in our market, I wouldn't worry about it. But as I mentioned, the average or the median is 7.5 showings to the first offer. If we're much above that, we need to take a look at the price. Maybe it's condition. We're getting showings, but maybe the condition is rough. Maybe we need to reflect that in some updating, or maybe we need to lower the price. Hopefully, we can get an offer, and hopefully multiple offers. I want to share with you a story about a listing that wasn't selling, and it's represented in where the circle is in the middle of this matrix. The home was about 2,800 square feet, priced at $635,000. Listed by one of our very top realtors in our company. He knows what he's doing. And he's trying to figure out, why isn't this house selling? And so we do a little analysis using the Focus First pricing tools. Now, what you'll see here is the diamonds are properties that are under contract. The triangles are properties that are for sale. So the first thing when we did this, and again, a picture is worth 1,000 words, all at once we start to get clarity. First of all, let's look at this property. It's about 100 square feet smaller, but it's selling for around it's under contract. It was listed at $620. We don't know if it's sold for that, but it's priced at $620,000. It's under contract. Here's another one that's 100 square foot larger, and it's priced at $620,000. Here's one that's quite a bit larger, and it's priced at $615,000. Are we starting to see a pattern there? Well, but hey, wait a minute. Here's another one that's even bigger. And again, they're all about that $615,000, $620,000. But then we have this one up here. And it's about 100 square foot larger, but look, it's up at $640,000. Well, we did some research on that, found out that that property had been renovated. And that's probably why it's selling for more. Well, then let's look at the ones that are currently for sale. Let's look at the diamonds. Well, here's one right here, again, at that $620,000. And we have this one here, this is 100 square foot larger at $630,000. Again, the subject property is priced at $635,000. Are you starting to see a pattern? Is a picture worth 1,000 words? And our realtor showed this to their seller. The seller took one look at it and said, we're really around 620, aren't we? And they said, yes, well, let's lower the price to $620,000. Before they could do that, an offer came in at $621,000. Using some of these tools can be very, very helpful when you're working with a seller. And here's why. Showing is better than telling. You can sit around all day and talk about the market, but when you really look at it, especially on a graph like this, it makes a big difference. Asking is better than telling. And finally, it matters who says it. It's more powerful if that seller says, you know, we really need to be priced at around 620. That's more powerful than the listing realtor saying we need to be priced at 620,000. Let's take the middle point here. Asking is better than telling. And let me offer you a couple of tips. When the seller gives you an objection about price or condition or anything, answer it with a question. We're going to give you some examples. It's not what you say, it's what? What you ask that's important. Knowing what to ask, knowing how to ask it, knowing when to ask it. So let's give you a couple of examples. If the seller says, well, I want to start higher, I can always come down. Show them the chart on showing activity. I'm going to show you that chart in a moment. And then you ask this question. When do you think your property is most exciting to a buyer? In the first few days or after several months? And you show this chart. If you've ever tracked showings for a listing, let's say you have a 90-day listing, what you'll discover is about 3/4 of the showings occur in the first couple of weeks. That's when the property is most attractive. That's when it's fresh on the market. That's when buyers are most excited about it. And then the showings start to taper off. So we need to be priced right in that very first week, certainly in the first a couple of weeks. And so that's why we ask the seller. We don't tell the seller. We ask the seller, when do you think your property is most attractive to a buyer? In the first week or after several weeks? What if the seller says this? I don't want to leave any money on the table. Have you ever heard that one? It's fairly common. I don't want to leave money on the table. Okay, well, you really have two risks. One is you've identified leaving money on the table. What's the other risk? The other risk is your home not selling. Let me ask you this. Which risk feels stronger and creates more stress for you? Leaving money on the table or not having your home sell? I don't want to leave any money on the table, they say. Well, since no one has made an offer and we've been on the market now for about 45 days, how long do you want to leave it on the market at this price so you won't feel that you've left money on the table? Oh, do you want to leave it on for another month, another 6 months? When will you feel that you've tested the market to the point that you're not leaving money on the table? So let's review. What did we cover here in this sales meeting? Number one, your mindset, which is I'm here to help my seller get from the life they have to the life they dream about. We know what we need to do to get prepared for that listing interview. We talked about the importance of benchmarking so that they are relating the current market to what they paid for the property, not what they're asking for the property. value positioning, knowing the competition. How do we stack up against the competition? How do we compete? And how do we win against the competition? And then finally, what do you do after the listing to follow up, to listen to the market, hear what it's saying, and communicate that to your seller? Let me ask you one final question. In one sentence, what is your best takeaway from this meeting? Hopefully you had many takeaways, but what's the best one? And, this is going to be posted on YouTube, so if we went too fast through here, you can always watch this again and pick up the points. But hopefully you got at least one takeaway from the meeting. Again, I encourage you to consider our listing masterclass. It's an incredible way to not only list properties, but price them, work with sellers, scan this QR code, get on the wait list for the October class. These classes are very small. They're limited typically to about 40 ninjas, and they fill up very quickly. If you learned anything at all from this sales meeting, I think you would enjoy the listing masterclass. Just remember, the system works when you work the system. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you next month on the Ninja Sales Meeting. Thanks for being with us.